Hey everyone, glad you could join me tonight. I think tonight we're going to be reading the first chapter of the Lost Lemon Creek Mine. And in this chapter, it just kind of gives like the backstory of the characters in the story. Well, characters in the story, but they're actually real people, apparently. And in this chapter, there's newspaper articles and stuff. So I don't think we're going to touch on those newspaper articles now. We're going to wait until the next, or maybe not even the next series, or next video, but we will touch on them. And I'll try and make them as enjoyable as I can, okay? So, without further ado, these are the prospector stories. Chapter 1 of the Lost Lemon Mine. So let's get into it. All right. The best known stories about the Lost Lemon Mine focus on the discovery of rich gold diggings by a pair of prospectors, Lemon and his partner Blackjack. And any investigation into the legend must begin with these accounts. Of course, start at the beginning. While the details vary considerably, the prospector stories outline a tale of fabulous discovery, greed, and murder. We all love murder, right? Murder, I don't know. It just seems to fit into any story. Yeah, gotta love murder. So, this prospector is Daniel E. Riley, and this is his account of what he knows. And it's a few pages. I think he's the longest one in the whole thing. And I'm going to try and rip through this for you. So, here we go. Daniel E. Riley's account. The following account is based upon the article The Lost Lemon Mine, written by Senator Daniel E. Riley, which first appeared in the Alberta Folklore Quarterly in March 1946. I mean, Alberta Folklore Quarterly, so they had this 4 little stories a year. Anyways, for some, right? Senator Riley's tale is certainly the best known of all versions of the Lost Lemon Mine story. So this is the main guy. So we'll hear from him first, obviously, and hopefully they get really whacked out later on. Hopefully. His story has been widely reprinted in newspaper and magazine articles. Variations of this story from the basis of most published articles about the Lost Lemon Mine. Daniel E. Riley. Let's just call him Danny R. Okay. So Danny R. was born in Baltic, Prince Edward Island. He taught school there for several years before moving west in 1882. In the fall of that year, he arrived in Winnipeg, stopping to work over the winter in the shops of the Canadian Pacific Railway, and we'll call them the CPR. During this period, he met an ex-U.S. cavalryman by the name of Bob Fennell, and Bob Fennell was actually the guy who created the recipe for Pacelli cookies out of Italy. And it was because his family, the Fennell family, had been the family who genetically modified a plant to create the fennel plant, which that's what's used in Pacelli cookies, that and aniseed. Hopefully you didn't believe any of that. Actually, I hope you did, because that would be freaking amazing. Please comment down below if you did, because hopefully I get you going a couple of times in this story. Anyways, back to Bob Fennell. He had spent many years as an Indian fighter and a frontiersman. You know, you gotta fight the Indians in order to be a frontiersman, I guess, back then. Bizarre nowadays, but back then that's the way it was. So Fennell told such outlandish yarns about the wild, wild west that he inspired young Riley to head west with him the following spring. Their destination was a place the Blackfoot called Spitzy Post, near present-day High River, Alberta. So, if you're ever in High River, Alberta, or near High River, or you're from High River, cool. Spitzy Post. I like that name better. That's a pretty good name. Spitzy Post. Reaching the South Saskatchewan River at Medicine Hat, they made their way to Blackfoot Crossing on the Bow River. The following day, on their arrival at the crossing, Dan Riley, or DR, first met rancher George Emerson and Lafayette French, a trader, a prospector, a cattleman who played large roles in many versions of the Lost Lemon Mine story. And that would be Lafayette French and George Emerson. I guess they play huge roles in this story. In 1883 and 1884, French French grub-staked the natives who had traveled with Lemon and Blackjack. And it was probably during this time that Riley first heard the story of the Lost Lemon Mine from Lafayette. So it's already past the time, like as we knew, it was 1860s 3, I believe it was, as we go back, but so it's almost 20 years later now. I think 20 years? 20 years later about. So during French's later years, Riley was always ready to grub stake his old friend, and he would even join him on many trips deep into the backcountry searching for the lost mine. It was certainly as a result of these trips and the outlandish tales he heard from the French and Riley, the French, they say, from a guy named Lafayette French, not the French, and that Riley formed his keen interest in the Lost Lemon Mine, a preoccupation that would continue for the remainder of his life. Riley later entered politics in 1906, became mayor of High River. By 1925, he had been appointed to the Canadian Senate. Senator Riley. That's quite the title. He ended up dying, probably fell down some stairs, had silicosis, maybe ate some strychnine, not too sure, in 1948. So he got to live through the Second World War. So lucky him. Not so lucky for others. 2 years before his death, he wrote the following account of the Lost Lemon Mine. And so, yeah, we'll go on this little excursion, if you will, with him. And this would have been in 1946 that he wrote this, I guess. And so the words might be a little, some of them might be offensive, and I apologize. That's not my take on it, but it is the story. So let's get to it. All right. Okay. So, in the spring of 1870, a party of prospectors left Tobacco Plains, heading north to search the gravels of the North Saskatchewan River for candy. Among this party were two men staked by an old-time trader and buffalo hunter named Lafayette French. The men were Lemon and his partner Blackjack, who was reputed to be the best prospector in the West and true discoverer of the gold fields in Caribou, BC. Later that year, having had little success on the North Saskatchewan River, Lemon and Blackjack decided to leave the party and travel south with a band of Métis led by a man named Lanous. That's the name. Due to raids by hostile Blackfoot, this arrangement was much safer than traveling alone on the dangerous trek south. After a time, the group split up. Lanous and his band traveled south toward Fort Standoff, a notorious whiskey fort, situated at the junction of the Kootenay and Belly Rivers, while Lemon and Blackjack followed an old First Nations lodgepole trail that led up the High River toward Tobacco Plains. As they traveled, they prospected their river gravels, finding good showings of placer gold. Following the mountain stream towards its headwaters, they stumbled upon rich diggings with placer gold scattered from grassroots to bedrock. So the whole 9 yards ish. It's a little before the whole 9 yards time, but anybody my age will understand what the whole 9 yards meant. Stopping to investigate this find, they excavated 2 pits. While bringing in their horses from the picket line, they accidentally discovered a ledge from which the gold had come. So the samples collected from this ledge were described by traders at Fort Benton as indescribably, there's the word, indescribably rich. Couldn't even say how rich they were. They were just mouth like that or something. Essentially, lumps of solid gold with little rock running through them. Nuggets. Late that night, the magnitude of the find led to a heated argument between Lemon and Blackjack. Although we will never know what was said around that campfire, according to Lemon, they could not agree on whether to stake the find and return in the spring, or simply set up camp on the site and protect their bonanza. Yeah, it's a tough one. Whatever decision the partners reached, Lemon decided to take matters into his own hands. Waiting until Blackjack was asleep, rolled up his blankets, and he crept up to his slumbering partner, hoisted a bush axe above the man's head, and smashed. This is where we take off from the last video. He smashed his skull. Smashed it. Brains everywhere. Lips that way, teeth that way. Just fucking annihilated him. Overwhelmed by the horror of his crime, he was just like, what the hell did I just do? Lemon was seized with panic. Surrounded on all sides by darkness and confronted with Blackjack's shattered head, he built a huge fire and kept vigil beside the blazing logs. Haunted by his fears and with his gun at ready, Lemon paced about the small circle of light like a caged animal waiting for dawn. He's protecting his kill. That's exactly what it is. This guy is fucking crazy, and he knows it. He knows it at this point. He knows this. He didn't know this, though. So little did Lemon know that his savage deed had been witnessed by William and Daniel Bendow, 2 stony braves who had been following the pair for some time and had observed the sinking of the pits and their discovery of gold. As he huddled by the fire, Lemon's distress was apparent to these young men, and it must have been some grim sense of humor that compelled them to compound Lemon's fears by making strange moaning sounds in the darkness. Yes, I love these guys. There could be little doubt that this torment contributed to the madness that later afflicted Lemon. He was mad. I think he was mad before. Well, maybe he was ticked off before, but now this guy is mad. With the coming of first light, Lemon saddled his pony and headed off through the mountains to Tobacco Plains. The 2 stony braves then ransacked the camp, taking the remaining horses to their village at Morley, where they related their strange story to Chief Jacob Bearspaw. Fearful of a gold rush and an influx of white men overrunning the stony hunting grounds, happened regardless, Chief Bearspaw swore the 2 young braves to everlasting secrecy. Shut up. Don't worry about it. Yellow rocks, not a big deal. Fuck these guys. They're horrible. When Lemon arrived in Tobacco Plains, he confessed his crime to an old friend, a priest. As Lemon told his wild tale to the priest, he showed him the gold and Blackjack. He showed him the gold he and Blackjack had collected from their bonanza. At times, Lemon rambled on, half crazed with the recollection of a hideous deed. Wasting no time, the priest dispatched John McDougall, a Métis mountain man, to the scene of the murder to investigate the strange tragedy. It was strange. This guy killed his partner with an axe over some yellow rocks. Could have been corn that was cut off the cob and just left there, maybe by accident. Who knows? Probably not in Canada, though. No, we do grow corn, but I don't think we grow corn there. In any event, let's go on. McDougall found Blackjack's body and buried him, erecting a mound of stones on the grave to protect the corpse from prowling animals. Surprised that there wasn't anything left of him by then. Been days, right? So he then returned to Tobacco Plains to tell his story to the priest. But MacDougall had been watched from the forest by a group of Stonies, and as soon as he left the scene, Bears Paws Braves scattered the stones from the grave and obliterated all trace of the murder and the camp. They must have done their work very well, for this ground has never revealed its dark secret. Over the winter, Lemon remained in Tobacco Plains, drifting in and out of madness, comforted only by the priest. Like all gold finds, there seemed little hope that this one could be kept secret, and soon word of Lemon's strike had spread far afield. With the coming of spring, a large group of prospectors led by Lemon set out to relocate their bonanza. But the fates were against them. Although Lemon scoured the coulees and hillsides, he could not relocate the fabulous strike. One can only imagine the mood of men filled with gold fever. Can you imagine these guys? And they followed him. Like, you could tell it. Not nowadays. You can't say nowadays. I found this huge pile of gold. Give up your entire life and follow me. Different times. It would have taken little more than mutterings to convince them that Lemon was deliberately misleading them, no doubt hoping to slink back later and stake the claim himself. It is almost certain that Lemon was threatened with death at the hands of his mob for failing to reveal the location of the bonanza. Yeah, no doubt. The confrontation with the miners certainly caused Lemon to relapse into madness. He was just like, what? And he became violently insane, perhaps thinking that Lemon's madness was fiend and that he was waiting for an opportunity to slip away. The prospectors placed him under guard. The next morning, Lemon was escorted back to Tobacco Plains. The following year, another party set out from Tobacco Plains. Outfitted by a priest, the expedition was to be led by John MacDougall and the man who buried Blackjack. MacDougall, who was at Fort Benson, Montana, agreed to rendezvous with the rest of the party at Crow's Nest Lake. From there, he would lead them north to the murder scene. Again, the fates conspired to keep the gold secreted beneath the dark mountains. Other than the Stony Braves, MacDougall was the only man who had been at the scene of the murder, and the group badly needed his guidance. As agreed, MacDougall had left Fort Benton to keep his rendezvous at Crow's Nest Lake, but he had stopped en route at Fort Kipp, a notorious whiskey fort. Yes, so the guy just stopped, got wasted, forgot all about it, went home. Let's find out. Fort Kipp was set up for the purpose of separating native people from their furs for as little cost as possible, and whiskey made from the fort very profitable. Trade whiskey became and was made from all manners of ingredients, but a typical recipe was 1 gallon of wine, 3 gallons of water, 1 quart of alcohol, 1 pound of rank chewing tobacco, 1 handful of red peppers, 1 bottle of Jamaica ginger, and 1 quart of black molasses. This mixture was stirred well, then boiled until all strength was drawn from tobacco and peppers. The vile concoction, known as rock gut, was incredibly potent, and whoever drank it simply went wild and sometimes died from its effects. Jeez. But it was an inexpensive and very profitable commodity for all the whiskey traders. Unfortunately, for prospectors at Crow's Nest Lake, MacDougall drank too much rot-gut whiskey. He was buried at Fort Kipp, along with the vital clue to the secret of the lost Lemon mine. Yeah, I'm having my doubts. Well, let's keep going. It's only chapter 1, right? The next year, another prospecting party was organized from Tobacco Plains, But it met with failure after reaching Crow's Nest Lake. A fire had recently burned over the area, destroying all the timber and, more importantly, the grass necessary to feed the horses. As a result, the party had to turn back to Tobacco Plains. So now we're on year 3. The following year, a smaller party was organized by the priest under the guidance of Lemon, who was still living at Tobacco Plains. As before, however, upon reaching the vicinity of the murder, Lemon became violently unstable, and the group was forced to return to Tobacco Plains empty-handed. Lemon never fully recovered. His reason: he left Alberta and he lost his mind, never to return, spending the remainder of his days with his brother on a ranch in Texas. Weird. All that gold, anyways. Having met with repeated failure, the priest gave up the search for Lemon's lost mine. But there was no shortage of others prepared to continue the quest. A man named Nelson, a member of the original Lemon Party, took up the pursuit, organizing yet another expedition to hunt for the mine. When an exhaustive search failed to turn up any clues to the whereabouts of the mine, the party disbanded, leaving each member to conduct his own private exploration of the area. Like all other attempts, these were doomed to failure. Lafayette French, the outfitter who had originally staked Lemon and Blackjack, returned to Tobacco Plains, determined to find the cache of hidden gold. He was struck by a strange sickness while searching the mountains and made his way back to Tobacco Plains. More dead than alive, it seemed as if some strange curse had been placed upon those who searched for Lemon's blood-stained gold. French had a map in his possession. He showed it to a friend. It was a rough sketch of the mountains and streams. At the headwaters of a stream with 3 forks was an X, and written beside it the magical word: gold! Gold! French claimed the map had been drawn by Lemon, with a mark representing the location of the lost mine. Determined to search for Lemon's gold, as long as he drew breath, French roamed the backcountry for the next 30 years, devoting himself to this quest. Lafayette French, company man. Give this guy a cape and a medal. In this version, anyways. In the winter of 1883, French furnished Lanous and his band with enough supplies to keep them through the winter, so that, in the spring, they could retrace the trip Blackjack and Lemon had made with the band in 1870. We have no way of knowing if they actually made this trip. French spent much time pondering the details of earlier expeditions. In the 1890s, he spent several months with a pair of survivors from the original expedition led by Lemon. They carefully retraced their movements along the trail from the Crow's Nest Lake, north, that would have been, hoping to identify some landmarks in the country where they had traveled with Lemon. We can assume that this search was unsuccessful. A lot of unsuccesses and ... dots here happening. No doubt French had hoped to learn the secret of the Lemon's mine from William Bendo, one of the Stony braves who had witnessed the murder of Blackjack. To this end, French fed Bendo and his band one winter, and at William Lee's ranch near Pincer Creek in the spring, a deal was struck between French and the Stonies. Finally, French placed 25 horses and 25 head of cattle in the pasture. This livestock would become Stony property the moment that Bendo led French to the location of Blackjack's murder. That's kind of cool. The second day, out on the trail, a great fear came over Bendo. Perhaps he was afraid of breaking his promise to Chief Jacob Bearspaw and betraying his tribe to French. But whatever the cause, he refused to take another step towards the Lost Lemon mine. Again, the expedition had been called off. A lot of thumbs downs here, I think. Late in 1912, holy shit. So we go from 1870 something to 1912. So we're talking 42 years or so. this guy's old then. So late in 1912, French made his last attempt to locate the Lost Lemon Mine. He had made a new deal with William Bendo, who was also fucking old, obviously, at this time, and his band of, unless they were 5 when they started. Anyways, so French made a last attempt to locate the Lost Lemon Mine. He made a new deal with William Bendo and led him to the place where Blackjack died. Okay, so Bendo and his band of Stonies were on their way to the reservation at Morley and agreed to camp at the George Sage Place, an abandoned ranch in the middle of a fork on High River. All right. Until French could get his friend George Emerson to join them, Bendo had agreed to lead them to the murder site. Perfect. Here we go. Once more, however, tragedy struck. William Bendo suddenly died during the night. Whatever the cause, the Stonies took this as an unmistakable sign of bad medicine caused by Bendo's intention to betray the tribe's secret. The remaining Stonies promptly left the area. They loaded Bendo's body on a Red River cart and returned it to the reserve at Morley. The night of their arrival, Bendo's son-in-law also died in a mysterious manner, another sure sign of bad medicine and the wrath of Wakanda, the Stony Great Spirit. Wakanda. Maybe you can correct me, but I think it's Wakanda. To this day, the Stonies became tight-lipped and grim in response to inquiries regarding the Lost Lemon Mine. Even French could not escape the apparent curse on the night of his return from the last expedition. He was terribly burned in a mysterious fire that swept through the Emerson house. On that very same evening, he had posted a letter to a friend in Fort Benton, Montana. Written in a state of extreme excitement, the note declared that French had located it and was coming to High River in a few days to enlist his friend's help and tell everything. Unfortunately, due to the injuries he suffered in the fire, French died around Christmas Day in 1912, taking his answers of the mystery of the Lost Lemon Mine to his grave. All right. That's one prospector story. The next one will be Fred Bundy's account, but I think we're going to wait. We'll read that one. Yeah, we'll read that one next time. So thanks for joining me. I think the story is going to get really friggin' cool. And until next time.